Calvin O'Keefe is a major character in Madeleine L'Engle's Time Quartet series of books, and, as Dr. Calvin O'Keefe, an important character in her O'Keefe series of young adult novels. In an interview released on the DVD of the TV adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time, L'Engle describes Calvin as the boy that we all us girls want to meet. Not all of us are lucky enough to meet a Calvin. But I was. And I married mine. Quote, major traits. Calvin is tall and skinny, with red hair, freckles, and blue eyes, and is a popular boy on the basketball team as an adolescent. Being bright, he is already a high school junior at the age of 14. However, he does not feel that anyone understands or cares about him until he becomes close friends with the unpopular Meg Murray. He is the third eldest child of Paddy and Branwen O'Keefe, who have 11 children and seemingly neglect all of them. Calvin considers himself a biological sport, and different from the rest of his family. Meg agrees, and wonders in a swiftly tilting planet how a family like that could have produced someone like Calvin. As Calvin says in A Wrinkle in Time, I love them all, and they don't give a hoot about me. When invited to the Murray house, Calvin intuits that, for the first time in my life I'm going home. Quote, being poor, the O'Keefes are unable to afford new clothes to accommodate Calvin's growth spurts, and he often wears clothes that are too short for him. Calvin has told Meg that one point in 7th grade he had to make do with women's shoes that were much too small for him. The school principal, Mr. Jenkins, bought him new ones, carefully scuffing them first to make them appear used. Later Calvin earned enough money in summer jobs to buy his own shoes and other necessities. Mrs. Watson says that Calvin's great gift is to communicate with all kinds of people. Calvin communicates best with Meg, and is able to share a telepathic link with her, called kithing. Even as early as their first adventure together, they form a close attachment. According to L'Engle, Meg couldn't have rescued herself if she hadn't had the love of Calvin behind her. Quote, as an adult, Calvin O'Keefe is a marine biologist, famous for his work on regeneration in starfish and other animals as well as his environmental work. He is married to Meg, and the father of 7 children. Polyhymnia, better known as Polly or Polly. Charles Alexander, initially called Sandy, later nicknamed Zahn, Denise, Den, Peggy, presumably short for Margaret, Johnny and Mary, nicknamed Rosie. Calvin is described as a loving father but not overprotective, who treats his children with respect. Calvin works on the remote fictional island of Guia off the coast of Portugal for several years, before moving the family to fictional Benseed Island off the coast of South Carolina. History. A Wrinkle in Time. 1962. ISBN 0-374-38613-7. In his first appearance, Calvin travels to other planets such as Uriel with Meg and Charles Wallace Murray to help rescue Meg's father, Alex Murray, from IT on the planet Camazotz. He does his best to protect Meg and Charles Wallace, but is unable to keep them from harm. He uses his communication skills to talk with several people on Camazotz, and almost manages to talk Charles Wallace out of its mental domination. On the planet Ixchel, Aunt Beast and the other sightless, tentacled creatures are better able to communicate with Calvin than with Mr. Murray. Before Meg goes to save Charles Wallace, Calvin kisses her, much to her surprise and satisfaction. A Wind in the Door. 1973. ISBN 0-374-38443-6. Calvin is described as a senior in high school and class president. He arrives at the wall behind Meg's house just when she is panicked and needs his comforting presence, and later helps Meg save Charles Wallace's life from the ecthroid and a mitochondrion called Giada. Many Waters. 1986. ISBN 0-374-34796-4. The third book in the series chronologically. The last title to be published in the original Time Quartet focuses on different characters. Calvin does not appear in the book, but is said to be in graduate school at the approximate age of 19. A Swiftly Tilting Planet. 1978. ISBN 0-374-37362-0. Although he does not appear directly, much is revealed about Calvin and his family. He is absent from Meg's side at Thanksgiving, but she is married to him and pregnant with their first child, Polyhymnia. They live in a furnished apartment near the hospital where Calvin works, but frequently visit Meg's parents on weekends. Now both an M.D. and a Ph.D., Calvin is in London at the time of the novel, presenting a paper on the immunological system of chordates. Sandy Murray calls this a tremendous honor, but Meg is uneasy about not having Calvin around at a moment of crisis. Calvin does call the Murray home, however, and tells Meg that he loves her. When Charles Wallace travels in time, he learns that Calvin's mother, Branwen, was once a loving child called Beezy. Full name Branwenzilla Maddox. She became hardened and apathetic after her grandmother died and her brother, Chuck Maddox, was beaten to the point of brain damage while trying to protect his grandmother from their stepfather, now old before her time, and with her heart giving out. Mom O'Keefe gives Charles Wallace the rune he uses to change history and prevent nuclear war. The Arm of the Starfish. 1965. ISBN 0-374-30396-7. In the first of the O'Keefe novels, published concurrently with the Time Quartet, Dr. Calvin O'Keefe is a well-known marine biologist whose intern for the summer is Adam Eddington. Calvin has discovered a way to help mammals regenerate tissue the way starfish do, and is justifiably concerned that ruthless men such as Typhon Cutter are willing to go to great lengths, including kidnapping Polly and misleading Adam about Calvin's motives, to misuse and gain from his research. A Ring of Endless Light. 1980. ISBN 0-374-36299-8. Although this book is part of the Austen family series, Dr. Calvin O'Keefe is mentioned several times by Adam Eddington, in the context of Adam's experiences with him the previous summer. Similarly, Dr. Austen mentions O'Keefe to Canon Tallis in the previous Austen book, The Young Unicorns. 1968. ISBN 0-374-38778-8. However, Calvin himself does not appear in either book. The familiarity Drive, Austen and others display with Calvin O'Keefe's work indicates that he has developed a fairly substantial reputation in the scientific community. Dragons in the Waters. 1976. ISBN 0-374-31868-9. As the focus of the series shifts to Calvin's eldest daughter, Calvin takes Polly and his eldest son Charles with him by freighter to Port of Dragons, Venezuela, there to study and help preserve the ecology of Dragon Lake, home of the fictional Quiztano Indians, from exploitation for its oil reserves. En route he helps to look after 13-year-old Simon Rainier, but doesn't quite realize at first that Polly and Charles are right to be concerned for Simon's safety. Calvin is reluctant to call in Canon Tallis to solve a murder, but is relieved when Misty Theo does so. A House Like a Lotus. 1984. ISBN 0-374-33385-8. In the first novel centered entirely on Polly, who has now added a second L to her name, Calvin, like Meg, is unable to get her to tell her parents about a traumatic experience she has evidently had, involving her mentor, Maximiliana Horn. He nevertheless allows Polly to travel to Greece and Cyprus without them, although her uncle Sandy is to be with her in Greece. Television adaptation. Gregory Smith played Calvin O'Keefe in the 2003 television adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time by Disney, directed by John Kent Harrison, with a teleplay by Susan Shilliday. The television Calvin is generally similar to Calvin in the book, except for hair color and lack of freckles. The film was subsequently released on DVD. The special features included deleted scenes, including one in which Calvin is shown as an intern at the university laboratory where Meg's father works. References. External links. Lengel's official site.